Good afternoon. I'd like to call the June 20th, 2018 meeting of the Royal Oak Downtown Development Authority to order. At this point, I'd like to open public comment. Please raise your hand and be recognized by me, the chair. When you approach, please give your name and address and try to keep your talk to 5 minutes, please. Anybody else for public comment?
Lockwood, Motor City Gas Whiskey, 325 East 4th Street. I believe we're on the agenda for our Façade grant later in the meeting. I did send some comments over via email. Just thought I'd show up today to answer any questions. I can do that now, or I can hang out and wait for...
You might as well wait to the agenda item.
Okay, not a problem.
All right, thank you. We do have that info, by the way. Anybody else? Ms. Hennessy.
Good afternoon, Carol Hennessy, 258 East 12 Mile Road, Royal Oak. I just wanted to say I kind of like the flowers, and especially on 4th where they're coming out of the pot. It's going to look nice as they bloom more. You guys always do a great job with our flowers in Royal Oak. I also wanted to check to ask about the memorial, if anything's being done about it, to check the crack.
Barbara looks at Don.
The crack was repaired years ago, and it's fine.
Did you look at it since it's been
Within the
repaired?
last few weeks, but last time you came and
Well-
asked, I checked it and it was fine.
Okay.
We had discussed that you were going to have the people that originally moved it look at it and see if they could fix it.
Yeah, I
because
thought we
it's-
talked about that, but let us revisit that, okay? We'll revisit that.
All right, and I just have two comments. One is about parks. I was appalled Saturday morning when I went to a 9 a.m. baseball game for a tournament at Memorial Park, and I know it doesn't have to do with downtown. There were 12 teams invited to this tournament that was done by someone outside of Royal Oak. These were guests in our city. The fields were flooded. It took them 4 hours to try and make one field playable. I've been at Red Run for baseball games. The grass is so long, and they've cut it, but they're cutting it long and leaving all the grass clippings there. I tripped over a log this big because it was covered up by this grass, and I fell. You know, something's got to be done. You want to add 2 more parks, and you want one down here? If we can't maintain the ones we've got now, how are we going to maintain this one down here? That's what bothers me. And the other thing is handicap parking. It's getting worse down here. My husband and I love coming down here. I know a lot of you know that. And it's getting harder and harder for us to come down here to go have dinner or lunch or whatever. Luckily, Tony can save me a space sometimes, but I can't count on him all the time. And spaces around here, I mean, like we can't go to Andiamos anymore. So I just thought, you know, maybe you should start thinking more about handicap and us older people that need it to go to these places and spend our money so these places can survive. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Carol. Anybody else?
Okay. What I have here, gentlemen, Ron Wolf, 333 North Troy Street. What I have here, gentlemen, are some pictures of Washington Square and Bryant Park in New York. And,
Get you back on the
as
mic.
you can see, they redid,
No one can hear you if you don't go
they
back.
redid many of the parks in New York under Mayor Bloomberg. And I just heard on PBS that the reason they're spending $50 million on one riverfront park of 6 in downtown Detroit is they're expecting that this will attract huge corporations to build along Jefferson. It is well known that all the parks that were redone in New York, and some
Ron,
of them
excuse me.
had terrible
Ron?
histories.
No one at home can hear you unless you're behind that microphone.
No one, they had terrible histories in New York, many of these parks, drug parks they were called. And now you can't touch them. Now, Judy Davis did a marvelous thing when she brought in these tables and chairs. This area around the Bryant Park fountain, which one of these pictures shows, there's a bunch of tables and chairs, also tables and chairs along the entire park. Regardless of what I think of Ron Bogie, which I can't get into right now, and the fact that he's going to get a freely he's going to, that park, whatever it is, green space you call it, is going to be maintained for him at the cost of the city. It is so important for this city to look at a downtown park seriously. It would do much better to have a downtown park than one Class A office building of a mere 6 stories. The other thing is that real estate values in major cities are skyrocketing because people are fed up with tailgating each other on the major expressways, and the young people want to live in Royal Oak. That's why they're coming here. But they're soon finding they're finding that they can't get school busing. They find that they can't. They don't have the library the same of the same class that Birmingham or West Bloomfield has. I designed a central park here. I also suggested a parking structure. I'm not against parking structures if they're located right. This parking structure would eliminate the need to destroy or move the farmers market. I know it's got I heard it may have a methane problem, but still, a parking structure in that area would be a tremendous asset. It would show everyone in the city where to park. And if on the north end of the park, by the way, if you had a double-wide sidewalk, that could be used during high traffic times like farmers market days for angle parking, or it could be used for food trucks on special events. And as you can see, if you have a mural painted, a nice mural, it's going to be an asset to the city. And again, the farmers market will be able to be maintained. As I said, millions of dollars a Central Park will attract, and I'm begging you to think of an additional fountain. I heard an idea of turning the Star Dream around, but you got to remember that when the Star Dream was installed, I was at the library when I heard the lecture, it was cracked, and it had to be returned to the foundry. So anyone who messes with it is nuts. The other thing is these parking lights downtown, the facades. I know I may be running a little over here. Please grant me one more minute. The facades of our downtown do not compare to the facades of Birmingham, Rochester, or even Berkeley. I see people plastering up business signs, and above the business signs on Main Street, unpainted for maybe 40, 50 years, on Washington, crumbling, cracking, falling down, and the benches are disappearing. In every major city, you see tons of seating for people to go to. New York is priding itself on providing tables and chairs in all its parks and benches everywhere, but uniquely designed. And I even placed
Let's get ready to wrap it up, Ron.
on this picture how varied from Central Park to Bryant Park, the different kinds of benches they give people to sit on, because they want people to come to their downtown. They don't want to chase them away. Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure. Thank you. All right, do we have anybody else out here for public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Moving on to item number 3, approval of the meeting minutes from our May 16th meeting. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Moved to approve by Director Riley.
I'll second.
Seconded by Director London. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Item number 4, expense items. Al, believe there's anything here that requires action, though if you have any questions, now's the time to bring them forward. Anything from Mr. Twain? No? All right, then we're gonna move ahead. Number 5, facade grant request for 325 and 327 East 4th Street. Mr. Lockwood is here. I guess,
Well, you should have a revised communication from Sean, kind of giving you an outline from what occurred at the Infrastructure Committee meeting, so maybe he can walk through what's in that, and then you can go from there.
Agenda packet, there's a cover letter stated, which covers the recommendations from the Infrastructure Committee from when they met on June 6th. So those recommendations are actually requested to be amended. I received a correspondence from the applicant this morning that is outlining a new scope of work, and I've passed out those handouts for your review. It also includes the revised estimates and what they're leaving out as well. So the revised grant request is at $10,000. The scope of work has been changed for both addresses, both 325 and 327 East 4th Streets. What was removed from 325 was the barnwood accents around windows and doorways. So what was left was replacing the existing windows with glass overhead garage doors, demo the brick at the base and re-pour the new concrete. And then for 327, what was revised was they left in place replacing the existing front door and then removing and replacing the glass, replacing the white window frames with bronze colored aluminum frames. So the revised total cost comes to $25,000. So the revised grant request is 50% of the proposed work not to exceed $10,000, which is $10,000. And this is a much more limited scope of work than what was originally put before the Infrastructure Committee.
Sean, the way it stands now, the total revised cost for both addresses is $25,000?
Correct.
Okay,
That's the revised
whereas
cost.
originally, the combined was almost 50,000, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Lockwood is here if anybody has any questions for him. And forgive us, because most of us are seeing this this revised for the first time.
So you'll find in the attachments too that I've included the correspondence that I had with the applicant. And then behind that, I've also included the estimates that remain, which add up to the proposed cost.
And the original recommendation from the Infrastructure Committee was to approve $7,000 as is and $3,000 additional with
Our recommendations.
with your recommendations. And if I'm reading this correctly, Mr. Lockwood is saying that the recommendations don't make sense, but he's willing to go with 7,000 for the overhead doors and then put the remaining 3,000 towards the existing front door and windows of the one address. Is that correct?
Correct.
So now, is this the first the Infrastructure Committee is getting of?
This is the first we've seen this revised proposal, so I don't know how the other committee members feel. I mean, technically, we would probably send this back to committee, and if that's what needs to be done, then that's what we should do. I don't know if we want to really sit up here and debate this, as to The other issue that I have, and I don't know, Mr. Lockwood, maybe you could help me out with this one. The only thing, when we went over this at the committee meeting, the only document that I can find that relates to 327 is the Tollis development document. Is that?
There was a masonry contract for repairing a lentil that is
Right.
starting to rust out. And then I thought we had an estimate in here for new doors and windows as well.
Yeah, so that's for 327, right? The white building?
Yeah, sorry, was that the
So
question?
There was an estimate, I forgot the total amount, but it was for the lintel, but included the brick above, because that would come out.
Right.
And I think it was new storefront as well. And
Yeah, it
patching
wasn't
in the
all
roof.
the new brick. They were basically gonna remove the brick just above the lintel, replace the lintel. It wasn't redoing the whole facade. That's a little bit larger scope than we had planned.
So specifically then to 327, would it be fair to say that you're not doing some things, but you want to continue to do some things, and the things that you want to continue to do are within the scope of work in the estimates that are put forth before us? Or have they changed significantly enough that, do you know where I'm kind of going here?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it should
It sounded like in your notice to the board that you wanted to, in lack of a better term, put $3,000 towards the windows and the doors on the 327 side.
Correct.
And I'm having trouble correlating that with the estimates, because typically, when we look at these, we really like to see the physical estimates that come in, so we know what we're approving and what we're not approving, and we're not just writing a check.
Okay.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I
So I was wondering whether the work that you are continuing to still do, the $3,000 worth of work, was already in one of the provided estimates.
It is, it's baked into that. There's, so things changed a little bit because we were originally asking for 2 grants, and it sounds like it's gonna be
Right.
1 grant now. So that changes things a little bit because it pushes us over budget. So what we would like to do is look at, is it possible to replace the doors and windows without replacing that lintel? Maybe just repairing it in place. I need to talk to my contractor to find out if we do replace the doors and windows, does that lintel have to go? So I'd be happy to provide a revised estimate if that helps.
But that is your intent for the money, is for that purpose?
Yeah, in my opinion, I think that's the best use of the money, and that's what we would like to do, yeah.
So just in deducing from looking at the two, at 325, it looks like you removed the barnwood accents around the windows and doorways.
Yeah.
Kept everything else.
Yeah.
327, you basically, because there you went from 24 grand to 9,000. So what you're doing is you scrap what you had there, you're replacing the front door, and as opposed to replacing the windows, it looks like I guess you're doing the existing glass, I'm not sure what's there now, and replacing the frames. So it looks, maybe you came up with a different solution for the windows, a cheaper solution, dare I say, less expensive.
Right.
How's that?
Yeah, no, we would look at, there's the door in the middle that would be replaced. The 2 windows on each side would either be replaced, or the large window, we would potentially look at maybe an overhead door instead of a window, if that was a more cost-effective option that gave us the same effect. The main thing that changed was we were going to repair everything above the windows, the brick and the lintel and all that. And we've decided to scale back on that now that we don't have the extra grant money.
What I would say, since, I mean, I'm just reading words. You guys have seen pictures,
Yeah.
so this means a lot more to you guys as to what you were looking for. So I'm going to defer to you guys to see whether you can digest this as words, and whether we can do something today on it or not.
Is your goal to make this look like one business instead of 2 separate businesses?
No, I mean, yes, we'll make it look like one continuous building. It is one business.
Are
So
you
it
eliminating
would-
the second door at 327?
I'm sorry?
Are you limiting the door? Eliminating the
No,
door?
the door has to stay there for egress.
Okay.
That we would repaint it so that it looks continuous.
But didn't we talk about that is, is that a brewing facility in there?
That's our storage facility
So it's
for the whiskey
Not
barrels.
really open to the public?
Not
per
open to
se?
the public,
Okay.
yep.
I know that was discussed at the committee level, so, if I may.
Yes.
Well, Gary's not here, so we can't really have him weigh in on it because he's part of the committee. So I don't know, I guess I would refer to Jason and Jay whether you want to take a second look at this or whether you're comfortable with what we've
Well, I'm
what
going to
we've gone
defer to
through.
Jason because
Yeah.
Jason's our,
I mean, we do have a recommendation that came out of the committee, which is the one you see before you. And that, if I remember correctly, was based on a lot of the work being done at 325.
Correct, yeah. It
And
sounds
then
like
we
now
made
they
a
got scaled
suggestion
back a
to,
bit,
right, and then we made a suggestion about 327, but Mr. Lockwood just didn't see it that way and so forth. So we have one before us. If we want to take a second look, then I think it needs to go back to committee for further discussion.
Probably a good idea. You mentioned something that made me think, we do want to tie things to actual proposals or bills so that when the money is distributed, it can be rectified like that. So I think that right there makes me think that it would be a wise idea to bring it back. A recommendation is, for the white building, is that 327?
Yep.
Again, I know you're like, no recommendations, but to just swap out windows, to me, is not improving anything. I think part of the facade program is to help to improve downtown, not just repair or maintain. So if you did look at something like maybe making the glass go lower versus keeping that little bump up, that's not gonna cost you any money, I promise. And that would make me feel better about that. Otherwise, what I see here is that you brought the scope down a bit on the main building with the garage doors, and you're only replacing the windows on the other one. So, that kind of, and it's not truly defined in monies other than some overall costs. So that's why I'm kind of going, well, where are we with everything exactly? So, but we want to help, that's why we have this, but to me, it's more about what's the improvement going to be? Like, we've given other grants to people who wrap buildings in brick versus, like a metal siding that they had. We've gone from cast stone to limestone on a building. Those are things that I think we want to get behind. So that's why we had the recommendation. It wasn't to put a burden on you. It was to say, hey, here's some more money if you could, ramp it up a little bit. So.
and I know Mr. Lockwood's into this already. Would you and Mike be available early next week so we could do this?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's, through Sean or Tim, we'll get this scheduled early next week so we can move forward. Of course, we'll have a recommendation that'll still have to come back for the July meeting, but, generally, the committee recommends generally it should move forward, but at least that'll give you some peace of mind and you can
That's a good idea.
continue to work them. All right, does that work for you?
Yeah,
And-
whatever we need to.
And is there,
solve it.
so you would like to see some revised estimates too?
Yeah, literally just,
That go along with that,
Yeah,
so when you do
estimate from the
come.
contractor that the revised storefront on the white building is this.
Okay.
The revised estimate that shows the revised scope on the larger building. Those are other things, just some.
I think, just so you know, I think the committee is okay with the work that you submitted and the paperwork you submitted for 325.
Okay.
So
Yep.
we don't need to see that again. We're okay. Whatever changes was done to 325, that would be helpful.
Okay. But it sounds like just the window replacement's not what you're looking for, unless we were doing maybe the garage door with knocking out the
Right.
brick at the bottom kind of
And
thing.
that's not, I mean, we all have our own vote. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
It appears to me the committee's goal was to make the two parts look like one building.
That was the goal in some of the recommendations.
And I would concur with that. I liked where you were heading with this.
It was an additional goal. Right, so, yeah.
So whatever, I don't know if we need a motion, but we're to send this back to committee or not,
Well,
but
you can make a motion to do that, and it'll be
So moved.
clear. And
I'll second.
Move to send this back to committee, and we'll schedule that ASAP.
Okay.
We need to vote on it, I guess.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Now we'll send it back. All right, on to number 6, request for TIF assistance.
I'll lead in with this one. The
Oh, I didn't read this.
Business Marketing Committee received a request to look at some assistance to the property at 218 South Main Street. You'll see in the emails, basically there were 4 items that the committee talked about. One related to the potential to add 2 additional floors of office to that site. For those of you that weren't part of the committee, this property is the vacant piece just north of Bright Ideas. It's been approved through the city for 2 floors, one with a retail, commercial first floor and a second floor office, as far as the site plan process goes. The petitioner was considering 2 additional office floors and was asking for some TIF assistance from the DDA in regards to that. Second was in regards to potential parking passes. The committee discussed this really more as its role as the city's parking committee, even though a decision on parking passes ultimately would be up to the city commission. The committee did discuss that. The third one was in regards to any facade program assistance. And the fourth was in regards to potential streetscape assistance, in that area in front of the 218 has to be rebuilt and installed new streetscape along that area. Basically what the committee had reached consensus on was potentially providing some streetscape assistance, and that was forwarded on to the petitioner. The petitioner asked for an opportunity to discuss that with you, and that's what it's on the agenda for. So I will, if you want to turn it over to the petitioner.
Sure. Mr. Simchino?
Thank you. I want to discuss more than just streetscape, though. If I can, Charles Simchino on behalf of the petitioner. With me is Tasso Tefsis. He's one of the members of the family that acquired the property on 218 South Main Street. And Tony, if you could pass these around. This is the location before the building was demolished. You can see what was there before, if you may have forgot. Tasso owns the Astoria Bakery, and his family own that. They own Red Smoke Barbecue, also in Greektown, a coffee shop in Greektown. Tasso is part of the Preservation Society down in Greektown. He's very active with that. Very active with the equivalent of Downtown Development Authority in their business district. Instrumental with bringing outdoor cafes to their sidewalks down there. And decided to acquire this property several years ago in downtown Royal Oak. It was a family business, self-financed, kind of a small family. Bought the property with the anticipation of developing it in a manner consistent with the goals and objectives of the City Commission, the Downtown Development Authority, etc. When Tasso first approached me about what to do with this property, we did look, and this is several years ago, we looked at your task force plan and recommendations that had been made at that time. All these recommendations had not been implemented yet, but the task force had already met and issued a written report that I have here. Based on this, we sort of formulated a plan. We were kind of counting on, at that time, these types of recommendations to be followed and carried out if we kind of shaped our plan in accordance with this recommendation in the task force plan. We had met early on with members of the administration. We had the Economic Development Director in a meeting with Mr. Johnson and Tim Twing and others, and went over what we proposed to do, which was to build a two-story mixed-use building on Main Street that contained components which were exactly what the goals and objectives of the city and the DDA and the task force plan wanted. The whole second floor would be office space. The ground floor, a little bit more than a third, would be a red smoke barbecue, just like the one in Greektown, closing at midnight, a true restaurant, not a bar. The other two spaces that would remain, would consume the balance of the ground floor, would be retail spots. Everyone wanted retail. Your task force report, more than half of it is about developing the retail segment and hiring the consultant to help you achieve some of those goals. A lot of it then is about incentives to promote that and to promote office space. Had a site plan approved for this two-story building. This is the rendering. We were before the planning commission. This was a unanimous vote, well received because of the design of the building and the components that it fits in our downtown. We removed a one-story old building in the heart and the core of our Main Street, which is unfortunately like many other buildings in the downtown right now. We still have a lot of the one and two-story buildings, too many of them on the main streets where there should be bigger and better buildings, newer buildings. We were in front of the city commissions to get approval for our liquor license. That was approved unanimously. The project started going forward then with encouragement from the city to demolish that ugly building very quickly. Let's get rid of that. So those costs were incurred. The building was demolished. The drive-through bank was horrible, there's no doubt. And the property was fenced off and gravel on the parking lot. In the meantime, we got the site plan approved, and Tasso hired the Ronish Company as their construction company and put their estimates together, which you have some of those estimates in my email. Along the way, I met with your committee on another unrelated matter for a different client. But I did mention that when Tasso's project finally had the pieces put together and we had some estimates, we'd like to come back and discuss some of the incentives, especially the ones that are mentioned in your task force recommendations. That took a little while to get the Ronish people on board and get their estimates. The cost ended up being higher than expected, which I guess is pretty common right now, to build a two-story building. The recommendations, though, from Ronish were obviously if you can build more office on top, build a possible third or fourth floor, you're spreading those fixed costs around more square footage, and you get some efficiency in the building process, and your cost per square foot goes down. So once we had that, that's when I approached the city again and went through an email request to Tim to come before the committee again and talk about those incentives, whether the city would like to have a four-story building on Main Street, where you think you would want even a bigger building than a two-story building in the core of your downtown, to have additional office space, which was one of the goals, maybe not now anymore, I don't know. I want to talk about that. And to get this project moving forward with some incentives to help mitigate some of the competitive disadvantages that are occurring right now between projects that are privately financed and ones that are subsidized extensively by the city and the DDA. When I look back at the task force report, it talks about bonuses being created. Obviously, the easy one that is easy to understand for you guys are the TIF reimbursements. And we wanted to explore that with the committee using the future tax revenues, where some could be rebated back to us, and tax revenue that would never have existed in the first place would also be shared with the city and the DDA. We thought we would be able to qualify for that because a significant portion, of the ground floor space is targeted as retail space. We fit that. The report wants office space. We fit that criteria. One of the other bonuses that's mentioned in the report is providing parking passes, fee reductions, or preferred status under various programs. Well, the programs that are various that you have are streetscape programs and facade programs. The next page talks about modifying the facade improvement program to provide preferred status to office and targeted retail applicants. And I don't know if that's been done or not, but those criteria are what I shaped the email request for consideration from the committee. We fit the objectives. We would like to participate in the various programs you have, whether they're facade or streetscape or TIF reimbursement. But most importantly, if there's going to be office space on Main Street, you cannot I think you know this because you've been through this with other developers. To pre-lease these spaces, you have to have parking for the tenants. You have to have the ability to purchase parking passes in a parking deck from the city. To get the financing from a lender, they're not going to want to finance a project that is office unless the tenants are going to have parking, because they know you're not going to get the spaces leased. It's very obvious. What started out as a self-finance project with 2 floors, then if it turns into a bigger project with 4, needs some financing. I thought I would have a chance to explain some of this to the committee. Tim had told me the committee was going to meet. I thought it was an organizational meeting and we would come back and talk to the committee. But I was very surprised that when I got the response that the committee wasn't interested in discussing this or any of these ideas apparently. And I felt that it was the equivalent of basically giving a death sentence to this project. This project doesn't require free land from the city. It doesn't require cash. All it requires is the typical incentives that you've traditionally supplied that are mentioned in your task force report for this type of project. There's not going to be a project that fits this criteria any closer than Tasso's. And surprise, the key element here is getting parking passes in order to try to pre-lease this property. The second thing is to obtain some equalization with TIF reimbursement in order to keep the rental rates of the proposed office space in the same market range that the competition is at. And obviously, there's been millions of dollars of incentives spread around here. You can count the people who've received them, the big developers, on less than one hand. It's artificially distorting this market tremendously. And our request is for you to consider 2 different things. Do you want to explore having 4 floors of this building on Main Street, the type of height and density that's always been envisioned for this downtown? There has to be some help to do that. We have to be able to buy parking passes, and we would need TIF reimbursement to make those office spaces competitive with what's been subsidized already in the city. And second, if you don't want more office space in the downtown, and you don't want a bigger building on Main Street, for him to go forward with the 2 stories where he's at, he needs some assistance. And when I say death sentence, I'm not exaggerating. This project may not go forward as a 2-story building. It may go forward as a 1-story, it may not go forward at all. So we need a cure for Tasso here, who started a process well before many of these other incentives were granted to other developers and other businesses. And that's what we're looking for. I'd like to have Kathy Wilson, who's the realtor, who's done a lot of work in the downtown, explain some of the details how she feels the competitive disadvantage is working against Tasso. Have Tasso talk to you, and then open up a dialogue here, because I never talked to the committee. I thought I was going to have a chance to talk about this. I'd be surprised if this DDA as a whole would want to issue a death sentence to this project. There's got to be a way we can do something and fix this. So let's let a couple other people talk and open up the dialogue then. Hey Kathy, can you come up here?
Hi, Kathy Wilson, 3011 Helen Court, Royal Oak. So I'm a resident. I've worked in this city for many of years. I represented Tasso when he bought the land. I represented the buyers of the Peking House. I represented the buyers of the Madrid Hotel. I represent landlords that have retail space. So I'm constantly trying to achieve the goals that you want for this city. Bring people in, retail, not just restaurant, but my job's getting harder and harder. Basically, the city has created a unlevel playing field. Tasso has to get at least $10 a square foot more in rent to cover the land cost. He's got everybody else around here has zero bases based on the projects that you've approved. You're putting a moratorium on development in the CBD because nobody can compete with that. You think about the rents that they have to get versus a private developer with no assistance. I mean, it doesn't make sense. And without parking, the project won't go forward. There are no tenants out there that are gonna come in and lease 10,000 square feet or 40,000 square feet. You know, so I don't understand what it is that you expect a private developer to do in order to do development in the city of Royal Oak. And, you know, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Anybody?
I actually have a question. But I'm not on either committee, so this is a question coming from ignorance. Are you asking for free parking spots or just the ability to buy parking spots?
A commitment for parking.
To purchase them.
As well as incentives.
Yeah, we're asking for the commitment to purchase them at whatever your going rate is, just like the other developers have been.
How many spaces,
buying.
Chuck?
If we need 130 spots for the 4-story building, commitment, that's using numbers a little bit less than what the zoning ordinance would require if we were outside the CBD. If we were stuck with a 2-story building, we need about 50 for the office and for a little bit for the first floor for some of the managers. You need about 200 spots. For each 200 square feet, you need a parking spot in this office area. And this building is about a 10,000 square foot gross template, 4 stories, 40,000, maybe a little bit less usable square feet. So we can work out the numbers, but you know, if we're going to lease office space, you got to have, you know, at least 40 spots per floor. I think it's a little bit light, and it's a couple spots for the first floor. To make the rental rates equal, we need some incentives to try to bring things in equilibrium. So I think the discussion needs to be, you know, if you want to go to 4 floors, let's talk about those numbers. We'll buy the parking spots. We have some estimates, just rough estimates of what the TIF revenue would be from a 4-story project. We gave you Ranish's construction cost estimates and try to cut those in half to see what the taxable value would be. And Tim was kind enough to calculate what the TIF would be, the recapture would be around 71,000. We would like some type of reimbursement plan, maybe 15 years, 75% of that. You get 25%. That would help equalize the rental rates. Obviously, if it ends up being a 2-story building, we would need less parking, and the formula for the TIF reimbursement to be the same, just that the total TIF recapture would be less. I don't know if that answers your question or if I'm just talking.
No, that answers my question.
And I think there could be an issue whether or not a 2-story building makes sense financially. You know, I think what you really need to consider is a 4-story building. And that's what makes the most sense for the city as well. And I mean, obviously, that's Tasso's call as far as number of, do you want to go ahead and talk?
Sure. Enough Tasso talking. Huh.
I'm going to tell you this on a more personal level, okay? We've been in Royal Oak for 18 years. The Astoria's been there for 18 years. In Greektown, we've been there since the 70s. My family's had both Astoria and Red Smoke. One of the reasons that we wanted to pursue buying land in Royal Oak is we like Royal Oak and we want not of all our eggs in one basket in Detroit. So Kathy found us the land. Then we understood that the city wanted office space also, which we thought, well, that's okay because we've always been in the restaurant business and maybe that's good for us to start getting into the landlord business and getting out of the restaurant business. As we saw how much this two-story project would cost, Marty Ronish said that maybe, you know, per square foot, it makes more sense to build 4 stories. So that's when we talked about it, and although it would be more money, then we thought, well, maybe we get out of the restaurant business. And when we talked about it, now, I didn't know anything that was going on in Royal Oak. This is the first time I've even seen this out there. When we talked with Chuck, he said, well, maybe you can get, you know, we'll ask for TIF, and he said, parking is a real problem down there, so we have to ask for it. Originally, when I thought that we were going to do the 1-story building and we came to you, it didn't seem like parking was a problem, that you wanted this to happen. So this is where we're at right now. This is the actual personal part of this. Okay. So we're ready to put all of our money and money that we don't have into this project in Royal Oak that we've, you know, saved for the last 30, 35 years, but we also want a level playing field. We can't compete with someone that has free land or TIF reimbursements.
Okay. Anybody? Mr. Riley?
First, the land currently there, do you own the land?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Can I address it from the committee standpoint?
Sure.
Okay. First, couple things. Mr. Semchina, you brought up a couple things, the task force report and how you're following it, and I agree with you. The difference is that I think at the task force it says 180,000 square feet of office space. Fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to view it, we've got, I think, over 300,000 already in the books. This plan, to be honest with you, I was surprised when it came to the Business Marketing Committee because I had followed meetings where the site plan had been approved, the liquor license had been approved, and I thought this project was a go. It's a 2-story building with red smoke downstairs, office upstairs. Dare I say, had you, I never tell anyone how to do their business. In fact, I recall at the time that you guys had said that you probably weren't going to break ground until 2019. But had you broke ground at the time, or leased the building out at the time, you may have, you would have been in more of a favorable position vis-a-vis the other developers. It's just a timing issue. That being said, and I'll speak for the Business Marketing Committee regarding the TIFA. You're coming to us on the TIFA because Ronish is telling you that if you went 4 stories, you'd gain more of an economy of scale. So you're looking for us to balance that out. And I guess what I'm saying is, our job as the committee isn't to lower your cost or make your balance sheet or income statement look better. It's to provide, bring the product to market that you can afford and that the market demands. And what the way we're reading it is that you want to add 2 more floors. It'd be one thing if you came to us and said, hey, we've got this customer who's going to take these 2 floors and we got to do this, that, and the other and make this deal to move them in here, but they're coming in, baby, but we got to add these 2 floors. I think we may have looked at it differently as opposed to we need to build 2 more floors to lower our rent. You're at that point, I mean, you're almost asking us to become a partner at that point. We're the bank. In other words, we're not just bridging a gap here. You understand where I'm going with that. The other thing that I want to address is as far as incentives to other developers go, because that's come up that came up a few times in your conversation. What this board, the Business Marketing Committee did, the Etkin deal, we did not make their deal on the land. We brought that project to fruition, and there is no TIF reimbursement on that. On the Burton Katzman deal, they're paying fair value for the land. They do have some TIF reimbursement, not a lot, but they're also building what is going to be now a 550 spot parking garage on their dime and reserving 150 spots, which is what's there now 24/7 for the public. So it's not like we've given the store away. As far as this project out here goes, we've given no assistance directly, this board has given no assistance directly to Mr. Boji. So I guess our point was, as a two-story place, the one thing we definitely can help you with is the streetscaping, okay? I would think, now that Mr. Johnson has broken out the 50 parking spots, I believe that we're capped on the new structure, but maybe that we could go back and find some place where maybe, I don't know if all permits are capped, where 50 permits, I don't know. That could be feasible. That's outside of the Business Marketing Committee, but I think that could be looked at. As far as, Ms. Wilson, as far as the unlevel playing field, I mean, that's a tough one to address. I guess the Business Marketing Committee, we try to look out for everyone in the downtown. It's inherent in nature that a big developer, based on strictly in construction costs, they're going to have an advantage because they do more projects. They deal with more suppliers. So they probably, have purchasing power to buy better from that standpoint.
But they have a land basis of 0. That's the big difference.
But when you started this project, that wasn't an issue.
Because that didn't exist.
But
I don't want to debate you directly because I disagree with a lot of the things you're saying, because I think there's going to be great harm to maybe 100 different properties in the downtown if this is what's going to be told over and over and over again to anyone else who has a property that wants to expand.
We're just dealing with this project right here.
And this project is different because it did start before all these other things happened. We were engaged with the city, we were working forward. I think there can be some consideration given for that fact that they're so deep into it. That's why I call it a death sentence. He spent cash money for the property, demolished the building, has been paying the taxes in the meantime while he's getting ready to develop this. And there was not an inability to buy parking passes in the past when this started. And you've never amended your plan that we were relying on. It's never been changed. Your plan says have the economic development director talk to adjoining property owners.
Wait a second, Mr. You're right, we've never amended the plan. So if we live by the plan, we'd say, well, we're over 180.
But
there's
that's what
nothing to
starts.
talk about. But that's not what we're saying.
He wants to get
Mr. Riley, I'm sorry. At this point, when I said I want to do it on a personal level, wouldn't it be foolish for me to do this? Wouldn't it be foolish for me to put office space where I can't get parking spaces and I'd be charging tenants how much more?
At least $10 a square foot.
Wouldn't that be a foolish thing for me to do?
I don't know what to tell you. It's not our job. It's not our job as this board or the Business Marketing Committee to relegate rents. If it was, believe me, we'd love to take a stab at some of the stuff that's going on with retail.
I understand that, but what do you want me to do with the land now? I mean, what do I do? I mean, I'm just,
anyone.
I think it's
Were you
really,
advised by somebody that there was gonna be an expectation of a lot of money that was gonna be granted through the city when you started this project?
no. But I didn't know that I couldn't get parking spaces, and I didn't know that I would have competition, that people had TIF money.
And I think.
Didn't
he's
know that.
Well explained the TIF money to you, but the parking, you know, that's, I mean, we're the designated parking committee, but all decisions on parking passes are done at the city commission level.
I don't want to argue,
I-
and I'm
Nor do
just,
we.
and I want to be respectful. But
Can I give you
there's,
some perspective to this? First of all, I was sat on the downtown task force, and the incentives and everything that are outlined in that report were to get us to those goals. So we created goals, and we said, in order to get to these goals, we'll look at these we've achieved the goals, okay? And that's one issue. The other issue is in every other thing that we've been involved with, whether it's Etkin, the hotel, Sing, the way it's coming to us from you is totally flipped upside down. Ordinarily, we come in and we see some napkins with some drawings on it. We like your plan. But-
I already spent $70,000 on this.
And I understand that, and it's a nice building, I'm not saying it.
I want to be wanted. I want you to want that building to be there, and I want you to
We do
be-
want that building
I
to
want
be
you
there.
to be a partner in this, because you're a partner with other buildings. Why shouldn't you be a partner with me? Why should I be the foolish person?
But I think a lot of this could have been ironed out had this process kind of gone the way that the process has worked with all these other individuals that have done TIF reimbursement.
I didn't come in here asking. I came here with good faith. Originally, I came with good faith, not asking for anything, just asking for a site plan approval.
I
I
understand.
didn't ask for anything because I didn't realize anyone else was getting anything.
Okay, but it was outlined in the report, and
What
as
was?
Mr. Semchina said, part of what inspired you to put this building up is what was outlined in the report. It was what led you to want to put up this office building, and at that time would have been a great time to be talking to us about parking and TIF reimbursement.
The outline in the report are the incentives for his type of project. The dishing out of incentives to other projects happened after this report was made and his commitment was made.
No, I think
That's
Jay's
all.
point was that at the time, nobody asked for parking or TIF reimbursement at the time that this was drawn up. I think, is that right?
Yeah, it's just everything else we're involved with and believe me, we like your plan and everything, but everything else is, you're coming to us totally flip-flopped. You're coming to.
I would disagree, and this is why. The goals of giving incentives to certain projects, even in this plan and all the discussions, is to create stimulus for other areas in the downtown. What's happening here is you gave a stimulus now to a small handful of specific projects, and it's not stimulating the rest of the downtown. It's to the detriment. Because you can't level the playing
You
field,
can't
you
say
can't
that.
give a parking spot to
No,
anyone
you
else.
can't say that.
It's a disincentive for the other development. What are you gonna do with all these one-story buildings like Tasso ripped down? If someone wants to redevelop and they need parking passes, do you have a plan on how to make that happen? Or is the downtown gonna be stagnant because you can't have another new building that needs parking? And you can't buy parking passes?
I just want to real quick address what Mr. Semchina just said, and I'm not disagreeing with you, but every vote that I have personally voted for at this table regarding TIF reimbursement every vote that I have taken has been based on the replacement of parking, the building of parking. Whatever project that you ever want to name, that's why I voted for TIF reimbursement, because they were either providing parking or providing additional parking. And I've done that, I've been very consistent about that my whole time on this board. This project, to me, takes away parking. Not in the essence that there's a parking lot there now, but if he needs 130 passes and he's not providing any parking on his site, And I understand that you have buildings on both sides and you're restricted and this and that. You know, from my perspective, I would say, I love that building. It's awesome. Go build that building. Ms. Wilson said to me earlier, you guys have to decide whether you want a 2-story building or a 4-story building. Well, if you ask me, I want a 2-story building.
Absolutely.
Because that extra 20,000 square feet, if Mr. Semchina's numbers are right, 10,000 per floor, we've already met the task force goals, which Mr. Semchina keeps referring to. We're well above the office space that we set out to achieve. So is the extra 20,000 square feet there, or should we just say, let's look at the 2-story building?
What about the?
Because we love the 2-story building.
What about 1-story? Because I can't rent out that other story. And I don't know that I would do 1-story either.
I would welcome
because
you at 1-story. This is your property. I don't want to be the one
I
that.
don't know what it would cost even because you still have a roof, you still have foundation. So, you know, the 1-story per square foot would cost more than 2-story, which would cost more than 4-story. I would have to, you know, Ronish and Vitale would have to look at that.
And I totally agree with that. And I think that
But
we have a number of other business people who are doing the same thing that you're doing right now too. Figuring out what they can do, what they can afford, what they can't. We have a number of different people. You're not the only one. You're not being singled out in any way, shape, or form. So,
Doesn't that tell you, though, that there's something flawed with the incentives and redevelopment plan in the downtown? I agree with you when you said you vote when there's parking added. Those are the projects outside the CBD, you know, the ones north of 11 Mile. They bring parking into it. Very few of them bring parking with them in the CBD. This project here of 140,000 square feet doesn't bring any parking. The city and the DDA pays for the parking deck with 550 spots or 580, but there's 700 occupants. It overwhelms the parking deck, and the surface parking now is all gone. The Center Street parking deck, you can't buy passes in it because it's going to be overwhelmed as soon as that can, you know, what's going to happen to everyone else, and as we move forward, and you're already telling us that you're sending people back to the drawing board. What are they going to draw? 1-story buildings on Main Street? You really want that? Or you want a bigger building on Main Street? That's what we're here to discuss.
Wasn't there a parking study done? I mean, how can all these incentives go out? Projects aren't even built, and we have a parking problem. I try and bring tenants to your city, and that's all I hear. I don't want to go there. There's a parking issue.
Okay, well, first of all, there's a parking, if you're saying there's a parking issue, what time of the day are you coming? Because I drive through that deck every day and it's three quarters empty, okay? So second of all, you keep on saying all these incentives, okay? Yeah, all these incentives. Oh, we'll give you the same deal we gave Burton Katzman then, except it's not city land. We'll give you tip reimbursement, build a parking structure behind your place, keep the public parking that was there, add it so that at nighttime, we've gone from 155 spots to 560 spots. We've created parking.
You seem like you're talking to me with a bad attitude.
No, I'm just saying.
I'm really here just to be.
I want your project to go.
A neighbor
You
and
came to our committee. You came to our committee
Yeah,
with they asked for TIFA to increase your project to a 4-story building. That's what you came to us with.
Yes,
okay?
but I don't expect a bad
We can't do
attitude.
that.
Okay, if you say that.
Or in
fine.
the alternative.
No, that's what I, that's.
A 4-story building, or in the alternative, if you read it carefully, consider the TIFA to let the 2-story building go forward, but even with a 2-story, we need the parking ability of about 50 spots.
Okay.
There seems to be, I gotta believe that out of 1,000 spots over there, in the Center Street 2 structures, that we could have 50 spots guaranteed by a contract where we would buy them. And there is empty spots in there now, but we're being told we can't buy any in the future because Epton's gonna consume all those spots.
Let's step away from the
I don't know if
parking.
that's true or
Let's step
what.
away from the parking one second and go back to the TIFA with regard to your costs of construction and your rental costs. the landscape has changed in the market. We all agree with that, whether we like it, whether we don't like it. There's some people up here that probably like everything that's going on. There's some people up here that don't like everything that's going on. But it is, quote unquote, the hand that we've been dealt, okay? To ask us to level the playing field, I mean, I don't think that's not the Downtown Development Authority's job.
It absolutely is.
No,
If you
I
help
disagree
create
with
the
you,
level
Santino.
playing field.
I disagree, so we gotta make it all fair. So in other words, right now, the guys who have a liquor license in their building versus the guys who don't, we need to go in and give them some reimbursement so they can get the same rent out of their tenants as the people with liquor license? I don't think so. We'd be bankrupt in no time.
No,
That's not our job.
That's an absurd extension of,
Well,
of this,
Okay, then what, then you tell me, you explain to me what's
the
not
other liquor
absurd.
license holders, you didn't give parking passes to.
We're not talking about parking passes,
And,
Mr.
yeah,
Sanchino, we're talking about
TIF
rents.
reimbursement.
We're talking about rents.
Yeah. All we're looking for is a decision from you guys. If you want to take a four-story building and take it off the map from Main Street in the heart of the downtown, that decision is going to be yours with your decision on how you handle this. If you want them to go forward with a two-story building, that's going to be part of your decision too. It's not just him because of anything he did. He's done nothing wrong.
Nobody has
He's
said
played
that
this
he
very
has.
straightforward. The only thing that's changed are things that you and the city have done. And so we're here before you and then eventually the city commission to see if we can get some mitigation of what's happened here. It's very simple, and it's fair.
Jason, and then,
Just a couple questions and comments, I guess. A, I know that you have a restaurant going in on the ground floor, I assume. Is there any ability to park on the ground floor?
No.
No, it's too small of a site to negotiate in there?
10,000 square feet.
It's
Okay.
10,000 square feet.
All right. You mentioned that there's that there's a bit of a gap in the rents, right? And can you demonstrate that? Because where I'm going is this. You know, I've read, you know, we in our, I don't know what it's called, a charter or whatever it is, and it does say that the Downtown Development Authority was created to spur development through TIF, period. I don't, you know, right now we're talking high level. I do think it, personally, I think it warrants a conversation to see if there is truly this, you know, this need or something saying, hey, listen, we are having a problem. And if you could show it number-wise, I think it's worth talking about, personally. I think that, you know, the parking pass issue, I don't know if it's available or not, but I could see any person building an office building would ask for that. I absolutely, I work with developers. There's not a developer that would build something without that. So I think that's warranted, personally. I think that with the TIF, I think that we're only obligated, or we can only give TIF to certain things that qualify, right, Tim? I think it has to be certain things that.
Well, your qualifications are pretty broad.
Okay, so that answers that. So
Your policy has been
Yeah.
to only provide it for the actual public improvements.
Right.
You've never given any money to anyone to build a building or private improvements, ever.
Got it. Private, okay. So,
Goes back to Matt's point, is everybody's added something from the public end. But that's been a board decision.
right. I tend to like growth. That's where I'm coming from, and that's all. So I'm just thinking out, this is the first I've seen this, so I'm just thinking out loud, you know, is all that it is.
Just based on this conversation and based on what I'm hearing, for sure, I can't even build a two-story building because I can't compete with the other office spaces, and I don't even have parking that I can buy. So that's where I feel I'm at right now.
What are the rents at the Etkin building? Because I don't know yet.
28 a square foot gross.
128. And what's Bogi's?
Their nets are probably 7, so they're at about 21 triple net. I don't know what Bogi's quoting. And there's a large tenant improvement package in there too that's given a tenant allowance package.
I mean, that's something, that's.
It's part of the financial deal though.
That's it, that's their decision. Well, okay.
Lori had the floor.
A lot of the comments I have, again, it's the first time I've seen this or known about this project, but similar to Jason's, I think I'm not sure who, I think parking is important. I think that should be resolved. I'm not sure it's this committee or city council, but I sympathize with you. So I think that should be something we should be able to do, or city council. But, and also the streetscaping. If those two issues were resolved, could you move forward? The streetscaping and the
Not
parking?
with 2 stories, no.
I mean, you can make a recommendation to the city commission. You're the parking committee. You make recommendations regarding all the parking related issues. If the DDA stood behind us to get some parking passes, I think it would help convince the city commission to grant some type of contractual arrangement like you have with other developments to be able to acquire a certain number of parking, up to a certain number per month. We pay the market rate. And that's what we would do. Tim was gonna send me a couple of the contracts that we've been entered into before.
Another thing I thought of as a business person myself is, when Jay says you're doing it backwards, Eka and the other people, they got the tenants first. They first went to look for people who were looking for office space. You're kind of doing it.
Well, I'm not a professional developer.
Yeah.
You can see that.
Yeah.
You know, I came here with just to build the building that I always wanted to build.
He's
And
gonna
that's,
occupy part of it.
and I paid the money, and we were going to, with this building, we were gonna self-finance it. I mean, I'm not Boji or Atkin.
Right. I understand that, but it's a huge financial
It is,
risk.
and
yeah.
it's a huge risk, and to put another floor would be another $1.5 million to finish it, right, at least, for that other floor. So should I do that knowing that I don't have, I can't be competitive and I don't have parking? I mean, from what I'm hearing here, so.
I mean, this is interesting because these projects do become sort of a partnership. That's not a bad word. If you think it's good for the downtown not to have 4 floors, but 2 floors is a good idea to have a 2-story presence on Main Street instead of maybe a new 1-story building. You know, everyone wanted big, then let's figure out a way to make that happen. That's all we're saying. And it's easy to, the fundamentals to make a 2-story building happen are gonna be the parking and some financial assistance through TIF. If you only built a 1-story building, you wouldn't have as much tax revenue to recapture anyway. We're just sharing new tax revenue you wouldn't have anyway. That's the beauty of the type of contracts that Tim put together in the past. I've actually used that in other cities that never did TIF programs like this. It's the future money.
Yeah. And I understand.
It's not that cash now.
Sorry. And I understand what you're saying, that we're going backwards. But we're going backwards in a way because I didn't need that second floor to be leased out to go to the bank to get money.
Right.
Dr. Rand.
I understand that.
How about this? Let's look at this 2 ways, possibly 3, and you guys tell me whether you want to even look at it the 3rd way. I would like it if you guys came back to the committee and at least the 2 of you, if not all 3 of you, came to the meeting and met with us and presented us with a 1-story option, a 2-story option, and it's up to you whether you want to go with the 4-story option or not. We don't need drawings, we don't need you to spend any money, more details. Here's the square footage, here's the cost of construction, et cetera, et cetera. Here's what we would need for parking, here's what we'd be looking at for TIFA, here's what we'd be looking at for streetscaping, which I would assume would probably be the same with all 3 proposals. I might be wrong in that. And let's sit down and look at it that way. Is that fair?
When you say options, what do you need?
Well, I mean, we've always looked at in the past, they come up with
Numbers?
performance.
And
yes.
Yeah.
Construction is
Yeah.
this, we could lease it for this, so just lay it out. I think that's what they're gonna
Here's what
need to kind of.
well, like Chuck just said, if you guys had a 4-story building, you'd need 130 spots. If you had a 2-story building, it'd be 50 spots, okay?
And rental rate differences.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll-
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's what we've always worked off of, just so you know, Chuck. We've always had a pro forma that showed us, where's the gap.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, and also, your cost of construction, again, these are estimates, and what you're able to finance on your own, so what your financing gap is. And look, and I apologize if there was rancor on this end. there's just a lot that's pinned on this committee that's like we were giving the store away, and that's a perception. It is anything but the truth, as far as this desk goes.
Personally, I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
You know, I think they know a lot more than I know.
And
I don't know anything about it.
We are for development.
All I know is if I, you know, I have to charge $10 a square foot more, then it's an issue for me.
Right.
That's all.
But you also need to understand from our standpoint, and I'll say it again. There's certain things we can and can't do to help people. One thing we can't do is if somebody has got, you know, an inherent advantage, whether because they have, you know, an economy of scale with the size of their building, their workforce, their labor force, their purchasing power, we're not able to even that. I mean, we can't make everybody equal in business. You can't.
Well, I think it's a good idea. We meet with the committee. We can do that in time to come back, you know, and then come back to your next DDA.
Absolutely.
And maybe give a little bit more information to you. I know a lot of you for a long time. I respect you, and I know how hard these decisions are. But what's coming to light is things are changing quick. The economics are changing. All of this is changing, and you know, there was a TV show a couple of weeks ago. Someone had this great analogy, like every raindrop does not believe that they contributed to the flood. Everyone here is part of something bigger in the city commission, the DDA, the administrators. And there's a lot of decisions that be made that interact with each other that end up with certain results. And we just have a really bad result here now for Tasso.
Yeah.
And let's see if we can figure something out that cures that. And it's also good for you as a body to figure out what you would like to see on Main Street, what the vision is in the heart of the downtown, and help. And if it's consistent with Tasso, then we have even more reason to work harder on this.
And to just add to that, and I know this has gone too far, when we sat down with Vital, these things are really important to us. We want our building to match what is on Main Street. We want it to look proper on Main Street. We think Main Street doesn't look good enough. We really do. And there's a lot of work, I think, that needs to be done on Main Street. But with our building, we wanted it to look like it should. And that's the first thing that we talked about with John Vitale, is it has to match what's there. We want it to look right. So take that for what, I mean, I think if I were in the city, I would want me as someone to come in and spend their money in it, if I were in city government.
And again, your building's beautiful. We don't need to see drawings.
No.
I mean, it's been approved.
We
and
need
it
to
looks-
see numbers.
We just want to look at numbers.
Yep.
And that's it, you know. And I know between, you know, Ronish and Kathy and whoever else is involved, I mean, you probably need to get, you know, tax estimates would be good to have.
It's just rough.
Yeah, just rough. No one's- yeah. And it's what we've been given on any project we've awarded any kind of TIF reimbursement. There's been a pro forma spread out across, I don't know, X amount of years, 15, 20 years. The pro forma is spread out that long. Just so you know, I think the longest TIF is 12 months, or 12 years. That's right, I believe at this point.
We're usually 10, but we
Usually 10, yeah. We went 12 because someone went the extra month. Don?
Mr. Sanchina, you have several times referred to the product of the downtown task force and the goals that came out of that process, as have members here. And it's been pointed out that we've already accomplished, in fact, we've smashed through our office goal. But there's another goal in that came out of that project too, a retail goal. And we aren't doing very well on the retail goal. And I would ask you to consider looking at possibly structuring this building to help us with the retail goal.
Well, the ground floor, which would hold retail, has about approximately 2/3 of it is retail. It's the restaurant's only a little bit more than a third.
Who says a restaurant has to be on the ground floor?
Well,
There's a lot of restaurants on second floors.
I wouldn't put it, for me, I wouldn't put a restaurant on the second floor.
That's another logistics nightmare. Product in, product out, customers in, customers out. It's we're including a good portion of retail in there, where I think retail is appropriate. And we could talk about that some more with the committee, I guess, but I don't know if that's really practical. I rely on your task force report for a number of reasons, because I hear everyone else rely on it when they're at the horseshoe, whether it's city commissioners or other people. You know, they go back to some authority for what's going on now, always reaches back for this task force report, and something we looked at when we started out.
Let me just finish. Mr. Johnson, there's a lot of vacant land, storefronts on Main Street. And I'm taking a big risk here on even building this building with the retail. Why would you consider that I take a larger risk and put the restaurant on the second floor?
Can I ask when you were before the city commission for this approval?
For the site plan or the city commission?
Property. When did they buy the property?
What year was that? About 3 years ago?
Yeah.
4 years ago?
And no disrespect, but it's taking you this long to get this off the ground, and because you said yourself the climate's changed. A lot of things are different now.
Yeah, you are disrespecting me, but yeah.
Why am I
Yeah,
disrespecting?
no,
Okay,
let's
I'm
look
sorry.
at I'm gonna stop this right
You
now.
are, sir. You're disrespecting me.
Let me stop this, because I think what we
Because
decided,
Things just take time.
I understand.
Let me make a motion to
I do
refer
have
this
several
back.
businesses, sir.
Let
Yeah.
me make a motion to refer this back to the Business Marketing Committee.
Sure.
And meet as soon as possible.
Okay,
Okay, and we'll look at,
let's make that motion.
yep, I'd like to,
Can I
Judge,
ask a question first,
Sure.
please? On the pro forma, can you give me kind of a clear picture of what you want to see on the pro forma? You want to see a breakdown or just a total construction cost?
no, to be honest with you, when it comes, yeah.
Okay.
Basically, here's 1 story, here's 2 story, and if you wanna go 4 story, I tend to think that we're barking up the wrong tree.
I'm not gonna go first.
Okay, I was gonna say, we're barking up the wrong tree collectively with 4 story, because
I
we're
can
doing something
tell
that
you
none
we're
of us
not-
can
we're not
afford
going
and nobody
first.
wants.
I'm not going to sit
Okay.
here and be disrespected by a couple of people and spend $9 million on the building. No,
Okay.
in Royal Oak. No,
Okay.
I'm not going for it.
So we wanna see how we can help you with a 1 story and a 2 story. Overall construction cost, Chuck, if you can, I mean, just throw a number of what we think taxable value of the building, which we're just shooting pie in the sky. What you would need for parking spots for both of them, what you would need for landscaping for both of them, and what you'd be looking for Tifa from both of them. Fair enough? Not a lot of work?
If you want to bring a 4-story option, if you decide to, bring it.
Yeah, we,
All right.
All right.
Is there support?
Is there any
Matt, did
support?
you make a?
Yeah, I made the motion to
Motion by
refer
Matt.
it back to the.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Second by Dr. Krieger. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
About a 6-story condo.
All right. On to number 7. Consumer Marketing Committee recommendations for event management. I was going to ask Sean to,
Yes, over the past several months, the Consumer Marketing Committee has.
are you here, excuse me, are you here for that? Okay, all right. Are you Julie? Okay. We wanted you to put you at this point in the agenda so you could see all this going on before you came up. All right, go ahead.
For the past several months, the Consumer Marketing Committee has sent out an RFP, reviewed responses to that RFP, and conducted interviews in search of an event management firm to take over management of the Halloween Spooktacular and the Downtown Holiday event. These RFPs were distributed toward the end of March. They were posted on the Michigan Intergovernmental Trade Network, and we also had them available on the downtown website. We thoroughly advertised this opportunity. We purchased ads, and we also distributed information through the Michigan Festivals and Events Association as well, and through our usual social media channels. So the committee determined at its last meeting that 360 Events, their proposal was the most original, it was the most unique, and it possessed sufficient imagination to take the DDA signature events to a new level of quality. So therefore, they're recommending that 360 events be selected. They also decided, or are recommending, that in lieu of a contract, that instead the DDA act as a sponsor for the two events in the amounts of $10,000 for Halloween Spooktacular, $70,000 for the Downtown Holiday event. Those were the same amounts that were originally put forth for the contract. And that they also recommended that a sponsorship agreement be prepared to outline the conditions of sponsoring the event. So we do have representatives from 360 Events here, should the board have any questions of them.
Would you like to come forward? If you just introduce yourselves.
I'm Julie Law.
And I'm Joshua Cade.
Okay. Maybe you'd like to, you want to describe the event, each event? I mean, you don't have to get into the weeds, but, just, okay.
Yep, so the Spooktacular event is a free event. From what I understand, it's a very historical event here in the city. And so we want to make sure that we keep some of that, tradition alive, where it is free trick-or-treating with, with the businesses. But then we also want to add a new element and kind of come up with an area. Right now, it's on Washington, is where we discussed having a monster mash kid dance with bounce houses and hay and cider, and just really making it an actual event. So after trick-or-treating, they would come and gather into this space and have different activities for families to do. And
You may want to talk into the microphone.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I was in radio for 16 years, and I still am afraid of microphones, so I apologize. And then for the holiday, we want to call it the Holiday Glow. This is something unique, and from what I know, has not been done here in Michigan, and I really feel like this is going to put Royal Oak on the map. We are looking to bring in hot air balloons and set them up on Washington and do a glow. There is, depending on the weather, but like any festival in Michigan, Michigan weather loves to, do certain things, but we would put 3 major hot air balloons up on the streets, and they would be a glow. These stand about 8 stories high, and once they're up, they glow and flicker, and children can walk up and talk to the pilots and, just kind of interact. If for some reason weather does not cooperate with us, we can still do a torch. So basically, instead of having the actual balloon, it's a torch, it's fire that shoots up about 20 feet up in the sky. So as you can imagine, all this propane is also going to heat the surrounding area. So in addition to that, we do want to focus on retail and do a cookie crawl, where consumers can buy a cookie tin, and they'll receive a map, and different retail locations will have different cookies from different bakeries from around the area, and they can go and collect cookies from retail to retail, and that would take place on Saturday during this 2-day event. There's other, ice sculptures. We want to do live ice sculpture carving to where it's a large sleigh. People can actually, once it's done, they can sit down and take selfies and do different things, take different pictures with the ice sculptures that we're going to create. They can also, if Michigan weather cooperates, they can sit out for a couple of weeks, and it will actually be a nice, nice piece that will sit down in the downtown. So that's just kind of like some of the, there's other elements that we'll put into it. We are looking at doing a holiday market, where there's, different holiday type vendors that will be there, where you can get your Christmas wreaths and things of that nature. But that's just kind of an overall, view of what those 2 events are.
Anybody, any questions?
I'll start with the spectacular. I like the idea. I'm assuming, and I may have missed it, but it's going to be on a Sunday, like it's been in the past, same kind of hours.
Correct.
And will there still be trick-or-treating on Main Street as well?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Because all the stuff will be on Washington, will there be any, will the plan be to close Main Street again?
People on Main Street did not like the street being closed. Those stores in Washington do not mind it being closed. So that's why we flipped.
The only thing I'll say to that is, I think the original and correct me, Don, Tim, if I'm wrong, the original closing of Main Street was almost done, I think, before, like, it even became an event, because what was happening is, the line on the sidewalk was spilling into the street. And it was, I know I had walked it personally a couple times, and it was dangerous.
Yeah, well, there were discussions about closing Main Street for safety reasons before the event.
Right,
kind of was
whether you're doing any
expanded
event
because of
stuff or
the-
not.
The Reese's involvement.
I guess my question is
The
why?
activities on Washington, we're hoping the lines will be more in Washington.
Sure, but they're still gonna be on Main Street too, because it's just rapid
Last year,
fire.
it was not true on Washington. So last year with Reese's, everyone was on Main Street and Washington had less traffic.
Right, but I guess my only question is, I watch it kind of build, and a lot of it comes from, the church. They do their little trunk or treat, and a lot of people get dropped off at that end and start there and work their way up, and then, of course, now they're gonna work their way over to Washington, which I think is great. My only question is, if it's not gonna hurt anybody, why not close them both down?
Well, the real issue before last year with, or the year before with Hershey was the candy place, was that as long as they had volunteers at the corner to make sure people were following a route and going across the intersection, it seemed to work well.
Okay.
The years where it was a carefree operation, people were going everywhere, it was a little bit different. But
Okay.
I think that most of the crossing issue was resolved when there were enough volunteers with T-shirts directing people.
Yeah, I just answered my own question. Technically, I don't think you can shut them both down, right?
No, it's a
No.
fire issue.
Yeah, for fire.
Should
Sure.
we, just for safety purposes, could we bag the meters on Main so that there's no parking there, so kids can't run out in between the cars and so forth?
That's a great idea.
But still keep the road open, is that a possibility?
Anything's possible.
Yeah, that's the happy medium right there. That's it.
That's the only one that worries
Yeah,
me. is
no,
because
Mike's 100% right. I mean,
There's cars parked there, and say someone doesn't cross at the crosswalk and wants to cross across Main Street and comes out between the cars, and
Okay.
so, I mean, something to consider. And then I have one more question on this, on the, under spectacular here, it says street closure at, so this is only for what, you're gonna close the street at noon on Saturday?
No, we changed that.
Okay, so this is an error, right, okay.
It's too early. I've already told her that.
Now, back to the holiday glow. It's Friday and Saturday?
Correct.
Okay. And I apologize. Oh, there's the footprint. Okay, great. More marker. So where the little things are, that's where the balloons are. There's a. So will pretty much all of this area in the footprint, all the streets be closed down in there?
Correct.
Okay. And what are our issues there with just the 5th, right? Is that the only issue with anybody getting in or out, is the 5th?
Yeah, I think so.
Should be.
Yeah, they usually, the police department usually, when they go over the plan, they
Okay.
make sure that that's.
What's the, and again, I apologize, I didn't even realize this was at the bottom, or I would've looked at it. The tents, on 5th, and where's this other one? It's not Center, is it? Oh, yeah, I guess it is, no? Yeah, right there, the 2 tents, one in 5th, and then the other one is, yeah, in Center. What's gonna be in those?
Is this the most recent, the updated one?
I don't think so. Well, you have ice carvings. I think you have ice carvings in one
Okay.
and ice games in the other.
Ice what?
Ice games.
Okay.
I just want to make sure it's
That's
the
on
most recent map, because we did make the adjustments. I just can't see it on the screen, but.
Yeah, this is for the 2-day event.
And is there,
Is it, are you able to put
The
it?
tent looks like it's on Washington. On this one market.
I have a
Is-
different map
is-
than you. No, that's the same.
This is same.
Yeah.
So
It-
the idea is to put the
What's on
warming tent
Washington?
on Fifth Street. And then we also spoke about having different tents to have check-in for the cookie crawl and, again, I'm sorry, I don't remember, let me see if I have the same app as you. Or can I just peek at your computer?
Yeah, absolutely. This is from the updated Tuesday.
Date.
Oh, okay.
I would simply worry more about the component parts and less about the placement of things, because
Yeah, that's fine.
this is gonna have to go through a special event permit. The police department, DPS are gonna work with them to make it happen.
The only last thing I'll ask is, I remember last time, I mean, there was some, restaurants in the footprint who, just a small handful, had voiced a concern over losing a weekend because of Christmas parties and this, that, and the other. I mean, in my opinion, you're talking, 5 to 10. I mean, it's not like, will the streets stay closed? Yeah, of course they will, all weekend.
Yeah.
Friday and Saturday. that'd be fine.
Yeah, Friday and Saturday.
Remember though, we did last year, it was a week after this, as I recall, wasn't it?
Well, it was originally this week. No, originally the plan was this week,
Yeah,
so
but
we're
it
right
actually
on.
happened.
I understand, but I'm saying, we had approved it, it was a 3-day thing, right in the same, right, Lois said, the same timeframe, so it's not like we're going later, so, okay.
And I think we discussed too, having the warming tent on Fifth Street, 'cause that was an easier one to close down, because it does take some time to put up those tents. Those tents, I wish we could put them up in an hour, but they sometimes take up to 8 hours to construct. So that's why we selected that space.
Got it.
I want to make a motion to approve the resolution as written.
Okay.
I'll support.
Got a motion by Director Krieger and a support from Director Safai. Do I have any questions? More questions?
Do a good job.
I've got one.
Sure.
About the balloons. How much wind can you actually have and still do it?
6 miles an hour.
Oh, boy.
It's gonna be a quiet day, huh?
Yeah, so we've learned a lot about the weather, and so it does calm at nighttime. So wind right now could be 10 to 15 miles an hour, but at nighttime it's supposed to calm. So the gentleman that owns the company is a retired fire chief, so he's very, knowledgeable of the fire and the wind, and he is not going to put anybody in harm. So but you can do these torches of fire at, obviously if it was 20-mile-an-hour winds, maybe not, but you can, that is the backup plan. So there's 2 nights that, if we can do it both nights, we will, but if for some reason on Friday it's too windy, we're hoping it will happen on Saturday.
And you do understand the event process here. You're going to need to go through the police department with special event permit and
We will do that right away. We know what.
That'd be a good idea, because that way, if there are issues,
Right.
you have time to work them out. All right, anybody else? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. We look forward to it.
Yay.
Thank you. All right. Committee updates. Now, Gary is not here due to a death in the family. Just about everything in the Consumer Marketing Committee, well, we just dealt with a big piece of it right here, but is going to be actually covered in Sean's report. So Sean can just give his report, and that'll cover that. The Infrastructure Committee, we covered a little bit of that today.
Yeah, we covered a little bit today, and I'm trying to see my notes if I have for last meeting, but I think.
Technically, you also had the Lockhart's Valet application, or the Valet application for 202 East 3rd, but that's listed later, so.
Yeah, we'll get down to that.
I think that's it. I don't really have anything else.
And then we're going to schedule a meeting.
Yeah,
Mr. Lockwood.
well, we can get together afterwards and call the meeting.
Business Marketing Committee, we just
Pretty much
piece of
did.
that.
Well, we met twice, actually. We met on the 7th, and we met on the 15th. On the 7th, we had a few different items. We had 218 South Main. On the 15th, we discussed the alley out here and the parking garage, retail space again. And I think that's about it. But we talked about, again, 218 and a couple other items.
Okay. All right, and we'll wait to hear from Mr. Simchina.
Right. We'll get something scheduled and
Okay.
we can do.
Anybody else want to add anything to the committee reports? All right. That being said, let's move on to the downtown manager report.
Okay, I'll keep mine very concise. I was contacted on June 1st by Oakland County Main Street, informing me that they've upgraded Royal Oak's membership level to Select, so that we are now at the highest level of Main Street communities. So now we are now eligible to receive all of the services that Main Street Oakland County offers to communities in the program, including technical assistance funding. We're eligible for national conference scholarships to reduce a lot of the financial burden to travel to those. Facade placemaking assistance, there's free architectural design assistance, which we could even direct some of our facade grant applicants toward to get some technical assistance beforehand before they come to infrastructure committees. We also have priority assistance from planning services. They're one-stop shop business services, and they also have a traveling small business unit. The next item, very quickly, we sent out a press release to promote the closing of the I-696 property for the Singh development. Cranes quickly jumped on the story. They did an article very quickly, and then on June 13th, I was interviewed by Fox 2 News with regard to the sale. We already covered this, but we've selected an event management firm. Been working very closely with the Consumer Marketing Committee to go through the process of issuing the RFP, going through the responses with the committee, scoring them, scheduling interviews, and then, of course, putting together the final sponsorship agreement. We'll be going through the same process here with the advertising firm. We're still in the middle of interviewing candidates for that at the moment. So, but I think we should probably expect to see something with regard to selecting a firm in July. Just an update. Also in my time, I've been performing some additional research with regard to the retail space, and that information was presented and discussed at the Business Marketing Committee on Friday. June stakeholder meeting that we held on, I believe that was June 14th, was the previous Thursday. That was one of our special stakeholder meetings. We had Main Street Oakland County there to introduce themselves to the retailers community. We had Pronto provide breakfast for it, so it was a pretty good turnout. Main Street Oakland County hosted a retailer listening session so they could kind of understand what retailers were going through, and so they could properly kind of model the climate in downtown Royal Oak, so they could get to know, what kinds of recommendations they could potentially make, what kind of services they could offer the business community as well.
Sean, I'm sorry. How has the attendance been at the stakeholder meetings?
The stakeholder meetings have been pretty well attended on average. I think we get about 20 people.
Are you getting a good mix of retailers, restaurateurs, landlords?
Typically we do. This past meeting, it was a little one-sided. We got fewer retailers than I was actually hoping. So that was one downside to it. I think some of the core retailers that I think are the most organized, that tend to rally the rest of the retailers community, they were present for it. I was hoping to see more of them, unfortunately. We saw restaurant owners, professional services, we saw people representing, various levels of government in attendance as well. So.
Right, and again, real quick, do you think the word is being spread well with regard to Main Street Oakland County and the things that they can offer to not only the DDA in the downtown area, but individual businesses?
Yeah, we're definitely hitting the ground running.
Okay.
There's still more things to promote. We have those lunch and learns, which is the next item here that we're going to be promoting. I plan on sending out a mailer. I got a very good response when I sent out a mailer for that business spotlight program.
I saw that.
It went so well that we're now booked through mid-December with businesses that'll be featured every week.
How's the response been on the lunch and learns?
I will be sending out a mailer here in the next week on those.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
but
I mean-
we do have all of the spaces all set, the schedule's set. Now we're just promoting it.
And one thing, and I'm asking the question, and then if so, asking that we're making sure that we're disseminating the information, that these are not just available for the proprietor themselves, but also managers, employees, anybody who could benefit, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
so I think that's, should be,
Right,
we gotta make sure people understand that. This
Right,
isn't just for the proprietor.
Absolutely, yep. And then in all of my announcements for these stakeholder meetings, I make it very clear who we define as a stakeholder,
Okay.
which is, it
Perfect.
could range from residents to employees
Perfect.
to property owners.
Okay.
But yes, I plan on sending out a mailer on this one too.
Perfect.
Likewise, there's another event coming up. It's a workshop being held at the county campus. It's Retail in the Age of Amazon, so we're gonna be promoting that too. The Royal Oak DDA will have 6 tickets for that as well. So I announced both of these at the last stakeholders meeting as well.
This is the one where Ari from Singerman is speaking, correct?
Yes.
That's one at the campus?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, yep.
What campus?
The county.
Oakland County, out by the courthouse. It's the same building we were at when we met with them, like Telegraph out to.
Yeah, in Waterford. I have been contacted by business owner and city staff in regards to the alley project out there. I wanted to inform the board that some communication was coming my way on that. The owner of Mr. B's is a pretty strong advocate for that project. Downtown website, it's nearing completion. Our IT department is working with ideation to make that transition. There was some communication back and forth today about that, so I'm expecting that it probably go live by next week. So on my end, at this point, it's just tedious data entry at this point to list all of the businesses in the district on the new website, so I'm nearing completion on that as well. So it will have additional features. We already have the ability to post articles. We'll have a business listing that'll be complete. That's similar to the previous one. We'll have access to the downtown website from the city's main navigational menu bar. What I like about this new version is it has a home slider that we can change out with new pictures. So it's very similar to the city's main page in that regard. And then it also matches the new branding for the downtown, for the rest of the city as well, which I think helps with the consistency on that. We'll be getting 2 additional features. I'm meeting with the community engagement specialist tomorrow about adding downtown e-blast capability. So I'll be able to send out things similar to how I do with MailChimp, but I could do this internally through the website at this point. And then we'll have a downtown events category too, so we'll be able to list our events, and that'll be automatically posted on our page whenever we create them. And then, once we finally get it, I think to completion, I'd like to have the Consumer Marketing Committee at least take a look at it and maybe give me some review and some pointers and some feedback on if there's any preferred direction to go, design-wise or content-wise. I brought up the Spotlight program. That's actually working very well. So I'm going to be meeting with our next business tomorrow afternoon to get information, take photos, schedule all the posts. And so far it's actually working much better than I had even anticipated. The outreach that this caused is phenomenal so far. I'm getting phone calls and emails every day on it. And it also gives us really good quality social media content too, which is one of the reasons why I thought it might be a good idea to proceed with.
Did Scout say that she noticed more?
She did. She sent me. I'll share the email with the committee too. She sent me a special thank you email on that too. So she was very pleased on how that went.
And I got that Dabber House today. I think that came today, didn't it?
Oh yeah, it started on Saturday, but we've been sending out stuff since then. So I have. I spoke with 2 prospective firms interested in retail space on Main. I just want to say there was a conversation about retail space here and vacancies in previous discussion this afternoon. It should be worth noting that the 2 companies that I was talking to were actually looking at retail space on Main. They wouldn't settle for anything else besides Main Street, and they wanted something that was less than 1,000 square feet. So people that I've been talking to either want more than what our existing building stock has on Main Street, or they want less. So it seems either.
They're
it's-
missing
it's-
out on
it's in this
Washington.
It's in this kind of gray zone in the middle that doesn't seem to be attractive to a lot of retailers. So
Unless you're building a new building.
unless you're building a new building, then, which I then referred them to some of the new developments that have been going on too, which have the ability to maybe give them some space that they prefer. At the last Business Marketing Committee, we talked about having an Uber or a Lyft promotion code, specifically for the downtown. I spoke to the executive director about where a preferred drop-off site could be. Maybe Main and Third could be a good spot for that. It's close enough to the construction zone where it might ease some of the parking and the transportation for people coming in, but it's far enough away where I don't think it would cause too much congestion around the site. I think if the DDA does go forward with having a promo code for Lyft, then that will reduce the costs to come into downtown for people that typically take Lyft on the weekends. So if they have to choose between another community in Royal Oak and there's a promo code that reduces that cost, we may be able to generate some more foot traffic.
How can we move it along?
Well, I spoke with the executive director on that, so there is a spending allowance, I believe, up to 3,000, if I'm correct, that we could start with that.
Right.
See how well it goes, have it for a specific amount of time, and then,
We're thinking the
Go forward
weekends
with
and the
that.
evenings for people.
weekends.
I just think from the
Safety
PR
point.
PR standpoint alone.
And safety.
Yeah, and,
I,
but not only that, when people are talking about what are we doing about the parking, the quote-unquote parking crisis or whatever, we can come back and say, look, we're doing this. I mean, that's,
Oh, Tony might feel, but don't you feel safe when your patrons get into an Uber versus drive?
well, it's also just, I mean, basically the way it works is that you give a code and when they come into downtown Royal Oak, they get a discount on their lift.
So I know downtown Ferndale had something similar, so I called them. I spoke to their DDA director, who I know fairly well, and we had a conversation about it. So he gave me the contact for Lyft's regional agent, so I contacted him, and the earliest he's available to talk is tomorrow afternoon. So
Okay.
I'll have
But-
more details tomorrow afternoon on that, and I
But
can send that out.
you've got the executive director's.
Yeah, he's got the ability.
approval. Okay, so we can.
Yes,
so we
yep,
can
I've been
go.
working with the
details.
executive director
Good,
on
got it,
Just waiting on details.
got it.
step of the way, every step of the way.
Next topic.
Facade grant program, receiving more interest in the facade grant program. We got another application that came in last week that I'd like the infrastructure committee to maybe take a look at when it meets in their, whether it be their July meeting or whether it be next week or whenever they meet. And then lastly, the Detroit Regional Chamber reached out to me with the Let's Detroit initiative. They sent some information for me to fill out. They're going to be profiling 50 communities in Metro Detroit as part of a talent workforce attraction and retention program. And so it was just some basic questions of that they could kind of assign a personality kind of to Royal Oak on what our nightlife is like or shopping, things like that. And so I'm waiting for more information on how this is finally going to look, but I'll definitely keep the board and the appropriate committees informed as I get more information from this. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Sean.
The only thing I'll add to that is Sean has been working on getting the banners put across the Main Street in 2 locations. The only real issue is whether we can double side them and not make them too heavy or whether they'll twist in the wind. So we may end up, I don't know if you got more in there.
I have an update on that,
All right.
actually. I spoke to ideation about 10 minutes before this meeting began, and they said they spoke to the chamber, who has their banner up now, and I spoke to Shelley from the chamber to see where they get their banners made. And it was a place in Clawson, and I put ideation in touch with them. The information I got back from that conversation was that using the material that's currently on the fence out there around the Bogie site, which is what ideation originally wanted to go with, was not going to be workable for a banner
That's
over
one-sided.
Main Street. And so they're gonna have to go with a really wide mesh. It's almost like a tennis court net almost. And so doing that double-sided, they said, is probably not gonna be possible. They said they could probably do an image or a logo in one spot that could be affixed to both sides of the banner, but wording is just not gonna be possible. You couldn't do letters.
Here's a silly
both
question.
sides.
Is it thin enough that you can probably read it reverse from the other side?
Yeah, it'd be backwards, but yeah.
Yeah. Which is, I guess, is better than nothing.
So we'll probably go with the one side and move quick.
I figure, yeah, well, the quick,
And we'll have two, so we'll have one on either end.
on that note, how did things go yesterday with Franco?
I thought it was a really productive conversation. We met with.
Did you get our points across and the stuff that we were talking about?
Very much so. I
Okay.
stressed the importance of signage for sure, especially for a lot of the businesses who say that a lot of their patrons who park back there are having a hard time navigating around this construction site. There's no pedestrian wayfinding.
And
so people are
handling
figuring
media
it out,
and
and
the
then they have to
like.
turn around and come back, and then so it's been an issue. So
Did you discuss them handling the media and the like?
I didn't get a chance to talk to him about that because we were speaking with business owners at the time, so I
Okay.
wanted
I
to
thought
do
you were
that
just meeting
at a
with
more,
them.
I feel, conducive point, so.
All right, anybody with any questions? No? Thank you very much, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
That was a good job. All right, on to our last agenda item. The request for the valet parking for Lockhart's.
This is in front of you again in your role as the city's parking committee under the ordinance. It's been a while since you've seen or processed a valet request. This request is to use the 3 spots on the south side of 3rd Street, just east of Williams, for 202 East 3rd. The infrastructure committee discussed it at the last meeting briefly. I've also had some communications back and forth with National Valet. I passed out the email chain and actually a copy of the letter from National Valet attempting to address some of the questions that were raised. The question that really came up was it more beneficial to recommend 3 spots on 3rd Street be removed for valet, or simply have them move the valet operation onto the private property into the driveway / alley that's between 202 East 3rd and I believe it's 210, and just stage from there and leave those 3 spots in the public, for public use. You can see some of the communications back and forth in terms of attempting to address that and the valet operator's concern versus, I think, staff's commentary. Again, it's you're providing a recommendation to the city commission as to whether or not valet operation ought to occur at this location.
Who can we address questions to? Who's heard all of it?
Well, you can see I've had the communication. The representative from National Valet indicated he couldn't be here today.
Okay.
On vacation. So
Is their intention to use this solely for Lockhart's or for whoever comes up in that area?
I don't think there's any way to determine who comes and who doesn't.
Who are they hired by, I guess is my question.
Well, the signature for National Valet is from Lockhart, so.
Okay.
But they're showing 2 potential locations on their plan that's in the packet where they want to park vehicles, and one is in the parking lot behind Lockhart's, and the other is over in a lot off of 4th Street.
Okay. And I'm assuming that this is coming up now due to the construction in the lot.
In the lot out front?
Yeah, I mean, the timing of it, I'm just, it's kind of interesting. It's something that if it was probably before the city commission or whomever, a year ago, probably wouldn't have, or 2 years ago, probably wouldn't have been that big of an issue. Tim, I agree with exactly what you said, I think the ideal situation is the win-win-win is we don't lose any meters. They still have their valet service because they've got 2 private lots where they can put cars. And they're taking, the drop-off point is in the alley, which I understand their point about, what's the word I'm looking for? Sightlines, in terms of being able to see them, but all it takes, in my opinion, and I hate to simplify it, is a couple of sandwich boards. You know, you put one at the corner of 3rd and William, valet parking that way, and one at the end of the alley, valet parking. And now you've got it without giving up 3 meters. The loss of the 3 meters, is it the end of the world? No, from an optics standpoint, it's terrible. With everything going on now, with, you know, your two major surface lots shut down, now you're taking away 3 meters, and it will be perceived by everyone that's being taken away by a business. And somebody's made a deal with a business to take it away. I just think, to me, and I'm not familiar with the alley, but Tim, from what you're saying, that the alley's plenty wide, it seems like the alley is a better option almost, the only option being it's not right outside the front door.
Well, the south side of 3rd Street's not out in the front door of Lockhart's either. That's off Williams, but.
The south side of 3rd Street.
The entrances.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so okay, I misread it then. They're talking about the spots in front, right across the street. Not the ones across from the lot from the ROK.
Behind us here.
Oh, well then, yeah. So, you're moving it just to the corner. But they're saying that's a no-go?
It's obviously they have some objections to that idea, but.
And at times like this, I hate to say it, but we can't, none of us can say it's only 3 spots. I mean, you
Well,
can't right now.
I mean, I've looked at this, I've been on the email trail on this, and I had to get caught up a little bit, but, and I've actually spoke with Loreno, but I tend to concur with Tim's point. The more I think about it, I think it makes sense to have them use the alley, and I don't know if there's something we can do to, I don't know what the rules are on sandwich boards and where they can be and not be.
I think they're legal
Well,
now.
traffic flow though, and again, I'm not getting into where he's picking
Need a
up.
permit for it.
They need a permit to be out on the street. If it's a parking station, if they're right in the lot, now, you could put a sign at the entrance to the lot from 3rd, valet parking, and you just drive through and turn the corner, and you actually drop it
Sure.
off going out.
Well, similar to what the Maury does. Maury puts their own sign up.
So you go out the other way and circulate around. So I'm not understanding the visibility issues and stuff. You'll see my questions, but anyways.
It's just, my feeling is that I kind of agree with Tim after reading through all this and whatnot. That's just my point of view.
Well, and again, I hate to say, but timing is everything. And under the current situation right now, to take away 3 meters, I mean, it sounds small, but it's going to be huge to somebody, and rightfully so. And rightfully so at this point. We got to fight for every
I have
spot.
to agree with you, Matt, on that.
Yeah.
You know, we've got 2 lots offline already,
Yep.
and we're going to be closing most of a 3rd one for construction in
And
another month, so.
think about how much, and rightfully so, we promoted the 26 spots we gained behind the police station. I mean, those spots every spot right now, particularly in the CBD and in this area, is gold. It's gold.
To me, it's not like they don't have another option. They do have another option. There is enough space on their private property that they can have a drop-off point on it. So, and then they can take the cars from there to the designated lots that they intend on using. So there is another option. It's not a situation where they don't have another option. So I agree with the group here.
Well, it is a recommendation to the commission, so I would need a motion to recommend against or for.
I will make a motion for it as long as the drop-off area does not impact any public parking spots.
Well, if it's,
we can't
then
do
you
that.
recommend against it because the only reason it's in front of you is because it's in the
Okay,
parking realm.
then I move to, I move against taking up any public parking spots due to the current parking circumstances in the CBD and particularly the City Hall area.
Are you saying you recommend the application?
Not approving the application is what he's, I think.
You're saying not approving the application, recommending the application, but not with the 3 spots?
Well, Tim says I can't do that.
Can't do that, huh?
Well, the only reason it's in front of you as a valet is because it's in the public realm.
Right.
If they're doing it on their own private property, there's a whole different procedure.
Whose alley is it though? Is it a public alley?
No, it's private.
It's their alley?
All right, then, your motion is good then. I need a second.
I'll support.
Support by Director Johnson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Anything else?
I have one item I'd like to discuss a little bit that came up at the Business Marketing Committee last week in terms of the improvements, potential improvements to the alley, in particular from 2nd to 3rd. The Business Marketing Committee did discuss it. For a little background from there, you can see the 2 handouts, and the only reason I gave you 2 was one was from June 13th, and the second one was from almost a year ago, exactly, when the Business Marketing Committee also discussed it then. Since Friday, there's been an internal meeting to discuss whether or not improvements can occur other than the standard concrete driveway. That occurred yesterday. The developer is having his engineer prepare some engineered drawings to show what it might look like along with the architect in terms of a more aesthetic pattern, probably stamped concrete, and then no curb except for a couple of points where the doorways are too high to simply grade it up to it. Once that occurs, the city engineering department is going to look at it, make sure it is okay from a drainage standpoint. Then the intent from the developer was to have a cost estimate put together for what he was already required to do versus the increase. I believe it's their intent to then come to the DDA and ask for your assistance in the sense of contributing some funds towards that cost. Obviously, a negotiated item if you're even interested. Given the Business Marketing Committee's discussion, my impression was you weren't interested. So if that's changed, I'd like to have a little bit of that discussion today so that I know whether we should schedule a special meeting to address this, because again, timing is going to be an issue of getting it built and put in without either leaving the alley closed for an extended period of time or allowing them to open it with gravel down and then coming back and closing it up to do some paving. So there are a lot of things moving forward with this, and I thought at least to get the whole board up to speed on what the request is and then have some direction, because my impression from Friday was the DDA was not interested in participating, at least from the committee level.
Well, I think I'll just bring you up to speed on what we decided at the committee level. It was one of the, I think we just said it's early on in the game, and it was sort of a rush due to, putting lines in, et cetera, and what they would do to repave it and what it would look like. And we didn't feel that any of us were in a position to make a decision on this now, not knowing what money we're talking about, not knowing what we're doing with our involvement, what's going to go on with vendors, cafes, anything going on in the alley, contributions, assessments from the businesses facing the alley. There just wasn't enough information. So I don't think that we were inherently against it. I think we basically said, come back to us when there's more of a solid plan together, right, and what the costs are, and we'll see what we can do. At the same time, we also mentioned there's a couple other alleys that are desperately in need of some work, and I'll quote what we said: there's no way that we're going to jump into this thing while some of these other alleys are all like are to the point where I heard of one today where a beer truck driver face planted because he hit a pothole and almost broke his shoulder and his neck. So I think there's, we just didn't have enough information.
Again, I'm not in that committee, but I think these public alleyways are very in and trending, activating them. And this is a wider one. I do agree with you, there's tons of alleys in the city that need attention. Some are just for transport and trucking.
Sure.
But this is gonna be a public alleyway.
Yep.
And it's kind of throwing a bone to those businesses like Mr. B's around there and making that attractive, because they're not very happy that they're facing that brick wall.
Yep.
Again, I'm not in the committee, I just think it's very cool. People go to Detroit just to go to those alleys and go down them.
And we discussed the belt and things like that. Definitely. And it
I'm not saying
wasn't,
we should participate, I'm just saying. it's a
and
good
we
opportunity to
weren't
make it
closing the
nice.
door on participating,
Right.
but the reason that there was such a time sensitive thing based on this is because of tearing it up to put the lines down, and if we're gonna do it as an alley, do they want instead of just paving it over?
Right.
And we said, well, we're not in the position to.
It'd be a shame if it's tar.
Well, obviously, yeah, you wouldn't want that, and I guess, I guess Mr. Boji is gonna have to make a decision on what he wants to do with regard to that.
I just wanted to reiterate, and I agree with Director London here. This is a really cool thing, and I think the flavor of the committee was that we would like to see something like that happen. We just didn't want to be the person at the top of the list that
Right, they come to.
to come to and make the decision. I mean, if a plan comes up and we see how far it develops and where it goes, and if we could, assist in a certain way at that point, yes. But to be the first one out of the gate and not know, like he said, not know if there's gonna be any assessments to the building, or to the building owners, not know what the overall usage is gonna be there. Is there a dumpster plan?
Sure.
There's so much that.
How much-
yeah.
how
What the
much-
actual cost, we don't even know what the, yeah.
How much is the developer putting in?
Yeah, so,
Each business should put something in.
right, so I think it's something that we definitely wanna take a look at. It's just, at this point, we're not ready to do that.
We wanted to be sure, we didn't want to throw money at this and then find out, we're going to bankrupt a place like Comet Burger.
Right.
Sure.
So we just want, like.
All the
like
information.
Like Chuck Sanchina's people, we want to see this, we want to see something on paper that we can make a decision.
I would agree with you on that. We need to see a real plan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And believe me,
Before we
all
make
of us
any
think this is
decisions.
cool. And even a year ago when we saw this, I thought it was cool. We all do, I think.
Yeah.
There's no question that we'd love it to happen. No question.
I still want to see those lights over Fifth Avenue permanently.
Me too. I love that idea.
So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, I mean, that's basically what I thought I heard, but, when I said I thought you were against it, was you weren't ready to put any money into it.
Correct.
We wanted more information.
So I didn't mean to say that you were against the idea or concept, if that's what you thought.
We were against the idea of putting money into it
You were
now.
against putting any money into it.
Yes.
Right now.
Yes.
So, and
That hasn't changed.
I don't know that all those answers are gonna get answered in a reasonable time period without coming back to you pretty quick we want some money, and I just wanted to make sure you guys understood where this was at and the flow that was coming on it, and
Yep.
I may actually extend something out depending on the scheduling to ask for a special meeting if things get put together before July, because I honestly don't think we want to leave the alley closed longer than it's currently planned.
No, we don't want
And I don't believe we want to gravel it, so.
Okay.
Once the engineering's done, the plan's done, and there's a cost estimate, we may ask for a meeting to see whether you're gonna participate.
The other thing we would like too is feedback from more than just Mr. B's. And I don't know if that's something the developer can get us. I'd probably feel a little more comfortable if it was coming through Sean.
As far as interest, you mean?
How do other people feel along that strip, yeah?
I can go take the temperature.
All right, well, that's all I really needed to know. I just wanted to make sure the whole board was up to speed with this and not drop it on the rest of the board at the last minute.
Dr. Johnson?
No, this is not related. This is just an announcement.
Okay.
We were notified yesterday, or maybe possibly the day before, at the end of the day, that the grant application for the bike sharing program, which is a multi-city grant, was approved. I believe the number on it was roughly about 470,000
For us?
for the group.
Was it Berkeley, Ferndale, Royal Oak, Huntington Woods? No, I'm not.
Oak Park, Detroit, but,
Okay.
so it's gonna be a common system, so you can, pick up a bike in Royal Oak and ride to one of the other cities and leave it.
Really?
Yeah.
Will it integrate into the current system in Detroit?
I believe so.
Wow.
There are some, I think, some route
What's it
improvements
called?
on
It's
parts
called
of
red
it,
or
as far as
something, or-
signage.
It's a color, isn't it a color?
They're red, right?
Not there, it's called red.
Yeah, well, the ones in Detroit now are red. That's really cool.
That's good news.
That's really cool.
Yep.
Awesome.
I used them in other cities and they loved it.
Yeah, but to go city to city, that's really interesting.
That's what we felt was important from the beginning.
It's
You know, when-
fantastic.
When I had a commissioner that wanted us to do it, it didn't seem to make sense to have something where your trip had to
No.
begin and end, in Royal Oak.
I mean, and yeah, Detroit's great, but you really gotta know your route there. But just with Royal Oak, Berkeley, and Ferndale, that's phenomenal. I like that. I'll tell you what, that's better than the trolley.
I don't think Birmingham is one.
It
They
is.
may come aboard.
I don't even think Clausen is one.
All right.
All right, what else?
Well, Jason's not here to offer
Yeah.
a motion to adjourn, unfortunately, to leave.
Tony's
so-
turn.
I will just say, with all these biking programs, we'll need less parking.
I
There you go.
And with the Uber or the Lyft incentive, I will make a motion to dismiss.
Got a motion from Director Riley,
Everybody else?
second by Director Safaya. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carries. Meeting is adjourned.